All right, hello, yacht everybody. Welcome to day 2 of the School to College series. Again, this is being presented by the First Year Experience Program, which I'll go into a little bit of detail here. The First Year Experience Program is for any students who are going into their first year of college, whether you're traditional, going from high school to college, or even non-traditional students as well, who might have not had that, maybe sort of works already after college or after high school, or you had a family, or it just didn't work out for you that way, but you're going to college again, or even if you just needed like a refresher. I was just talking about we're getting out of the summer series, or we're getting out of like the summer season or summer break, I should say. And we're getting ready to go into college. I know everybody's colleges or schools start differently. Some people maybe even already starting now, or some I know don't usually start until August, or some usually don't even start until September. So everybody's kind of in different timelines right now. But nonetheless, we're really excited to have you all here, and definitely give yourself a pat on the back for making that first step initiative to attend these events, these enrichment events, to help you into the college prep process. So while this programming was set up for students who are going into their first year of college, it's also open to anybody who's interested in just, seeing any of the material that we have, whether you're a family member, a current student, a prospective college student, maybe you're in high school still, and maybe thinking about college, any school staff, high school, college staff, advisors, anybody really is welcome to attend these events. So again, welcome to Slow to College, and my name is Adrianna Yate. Adrianna So, Yanishia, Osofana Nashlik, Kia Ami Beshchin, Zedesh gives me dash Chake, Olga Dashinole. So, hello everybody, my name is Adrianna. I'm one of the college success coaches with the American Indian College Fund, and I'm Navajo, and I'm originally from Gallup, New Mexico. And I am a college success coach, but I also run the first year experience program, which I kind of just wanted to detail about. So it is, a year-long programming, but with the exception of the summer series, which is definitely open for anybody who wants some additional help with college prep. So let's go ahead and go into this. So just take some time right now to introduce yourself in the comments. If you were here yesterday, the icebreaker question was, what did you have for lunch? For today, I want to ask you, what is your go-to jam this summer? There's a lot of new music coming out and everything. And some songs bring different vibes and definitely kind of bring you back into the summer mode or into spring mode or something. So what has been your go-to jam this summer? But also include where you're tuning in from. If you want to represent your tribal affiliations, you can put that in the comments. So for me, my go-to jam has been, I want to say Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar, but I feel like everybody's going to say that. So, but it definitely has been mine. But I think I've been really jamming to a lot of like Tyler, the Creator, Flower Boy album. I feel like that's just very like whimsical and everything, and it really brings me into the summer mindset. So I would say, I don't know, I'll say the full album, but I want to go into a specific song. I can't think of it. It's funny when you're put on the spot, you kind of forget what you're. I was just listening to it today. See You Again. I would say that's my song for the summer right now. Casey from Billings. Chippewa Cree, Million Dollar Baby. Yes, that's also another song that's been kind of going viral. Marina, Kansas City. Awesome. Welcome. Awesome. Thanks, y'all. And yeah, if you you can go ahead and feel free to put it in the chat as well. Keep going. Yakima Nation. Anything my 4-year-old sings. Just cute. That's so cute. That reminds me of my niece. She used to love, like, when Moana came out, she was always singing How Far I'll Go. I forget, I think that's what the song's called, but she would always sing that. It's so cute. A lot of Zach Bryan. Yeah, Zach Bryan definitely. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's been on my bucket list to go see him in concert. Awesome. Thanks all for being interactive in the chat. And as we go along to the interactions in the chats are very appreciative. You can put your thoughts and comments in there, as our guest hosts are talking and everything. There's also the little emotes in here too that you can utilize. There's like a clapping one, a heart one, a happy face, and all of that too. So yeah, feel free to look into those. All right, so like I said, we're in week 1, and if you were here yesterday, we had Dr. Shiramaya with us, who was talking about finding more financial aid for college and also how to build a really competitive scholarship application as well. She gave some really good tips and used a lot of storytelling and everything. So definitely, and that'll be on our YouTube as well. If you didn't get a chance to look at that, you can watch the video, but definitely a lot of good knowledge there. And today we're going to be talking about building study habits with Sky Harper, and I'll kind of go more formal introduction with him when we get to that part. But then tomorrow we're going to be ending off the first week with creating connections on campus. And that'll be a small panel consisted of 2 students, Clay Begay and Nona Little Al Ignacio, which will be led by one of our own college fund staff, Anna Marie Stevens. And then that same day at 4 p.m. we'll be having a first year experience with me. So this is, open for everybody. This is kind of just a place to come and, share any collective thoughts or any reactions from this past week, or just to meet any other people here who are attending the sessions as well. Anybody's welcome to attend. You don't register for those. You just click on the link that prompted there. So yeah. So also incentives. So again, we love some free door prizes and everything. And the big way that you can enter to win these prizes is to complete the event evaluations after each session. So if you entered your event evaluation for yesterday, you're already entered into the first tier. So let's go over these. If you attend one session and complete the event evaluation, you're entered to win a $50 Amazon gift card. If you attend 2 sessions and do the event evaluations, you'll be entered to win a Sony wireless headphone set. If you attend 3 sessions and complete those event evaluations, you'll be entered to win an Amazon Fire tablet. And our grand prize, which is really awesome, if you attend 4 or more sessions and do those event evaluations, you'll be entered to win a laptop. So really encourage you, to attend as many sessions as you can. But no matter how many sessions you attend, even if it's just one, you'll be entered to win an incentive as well. So I'll be prompting the event evaluations after each program, or after each presentation, and then we'll also be sharing these as well as on our link tree, which we'll put here in the chat in a little bit, and then as well as on the first year newsletter, which I'll put the sign up link if you're interested in doing that. But I don't want to take too much time away because I'm excited to see what Sky's going to share. So we're going to be moving on to our second session, our second guest host, who's Sky Harper. So Sky Harper is one of our College Fund student ambassadors who has a lot of extensive knowledge on academic success, as well as just everything. I feel like I know Sky also hosted a session for us this past spring talking about taking advantage of academic opportunities, which he's done a lot of different things and researched a lot of different internships and fellowships. So I'm really excited to have him here. He just recently graduated from Drexel University with a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry with a biochemistry concentration, with a biology and interdisciplinary problem-solving minor. And he is Navajo from the Navajo Nation. And right now he's preparing to do a post-baccalaureate program, which he just shared with me. And I'm sure he'll kind of share more a little bit about that. But yeah, we're really excited to have Sky here. You can read more about his bio and everything, but I don't want to take too much time away. So Sky, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you.
Ja, she is Carpinche. Donne ye kianisha, Tichini Bashichin, Tonsijashado Kianachanale. Good ego Telkianisha. Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Sky Harper. And thank you, Adrianna, for that wonderful introduction. And just to add on to that, yeah, I did graduate from Drexel University about a little over a month ago, with a BS in chemistry. And like what Adrianna was saying, I'm getting ready to pursue a baccalaureate research program at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota this fall. But yeah, I was invited here today to speak with everybody about building study habits and kind of weave in a little bit of my own experience and what got me through my undergrad degree. And I want to say congratulations to everybody for taking that first step, coming to this event, and even just having that initiative to be engaged and to learn something before you go into your first year. So I appreciate that a lot. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I have a presentation to share today. Okay, let me see. Yeah, So today I'm here to talk about building study habits. And I want to start off by saying that college requires many different study skills that you may have built in the past, where it may be from high school, from a job, just from your prior experience. College is another realm where you need to kind of change up the way you think and the way you study. So some of the key points I want to emphasize before we really go in is that college is going to require you to be organized. You need to many people use different type of organizational tools, for example, like planners, calendars. For me, I often use like the Outlook calendar that came with my email as my form of to keep track of what I need to do, where I need to go as far as classes and even things beyond that. But you're gonna have to be very organized with your time and just plan things out in advance. Secondly, you're also going to need to improve your study skills, which is what we're doing here today. After that, you're going to need to develop a support system at your school, at your institution, where maybe with your friends, your peers, your mentors, faculty, professors, whoever you think will support you and who has your best interest. I I guess who's considering your best interest. That's who you should kind of talk with and figure out who you're going to lean on for things like letter recommendation, for who you want to talk to just about your experiences, maybe somebody who can offer you resources. So kind of keep that in mind as well. Then talking with your professors, that falls into kind of all of the things already that I mentioned, where it may come to studying, where it may come to support systems, and support systems may be academic and non-academic. Then you need to, in college, get help early. When you first come into a problem, encounter something, make that initiative to go and seek help before it gets any worse and try to solve your issues. And whatever you think you may need help with, get that solved. Try to seek help early. Then kind of the last thing I want to mention really quick is make sure you prioritize yourself first, your sleep schedule, how your eating schedule, exercise, having fun, mental health, all of that. That should be your priority. I think that should be your number one priority before your academics. But some people may have those a little switched, but it's a good way to kind of intertwine both of them. So I want to talk about organizing yourself first and kind of practical things you can do in college. So the first week of your semester, for every single class that you attend, your professor should be giving you a syllabus. So the syllabus I like to think about is the outline of the entire class, of the entire semester. It should have the professor's office hours on there. It should have things like the grading scale breakdown. It should have how much each assignment is worth, due dates, a tentative schedule, as well as any policies that the professor has, such as late work, such as sometimes professors have other little assignments like extra credit that's usually included in the syllabus. So the first week of classes, it's very, I think, important to take a look at the syllabus, read it through, highlight things that you think are important, because later in the semester, you may need to kind of go back to that document, look at things again and say, oh, I need to talk with my professor. Let me see if they have this policy in their syllabus. I'm about to go on a trip. Do I have something due this week? Let me look at the syllabus. So definitely that's kind of, I think, the first thing you need to do. And it comes, I guess studying comes into that because you need to study your syllabus and really think get that kind of ingrained in your mind what the semester holds and kind of plan it ahead. So that definitely the syllabus is the first step. After that, then when, like I said, the syllabus will have your assignments, maybe a tentative schedule and due dates. Use that to plan out your work so you're not overloaded, you're not crowding your schedule. You want to have things kind of spaced out so that you have time to breathe, time to relax, and time to do things comfortably. So definitely that again comes from the syllabus. And then again, your syllabus is going to kind of be the guide and show you what you have to do, what to expect, and how much time you should put into your studies. So definitely, like I said, the syllabus is the number one thing you should be looking at your first week of classes. And I think even before the first week of classes, some professors will give that to you, and it's just a good way to prepare. So getting to actual studying, there's the thing is, I guess studying depends a lot on yourself and what your own processes and what you think works for you. So it's going to kind of take a lot of trial and error to figure out what works for you. I know some of my friends, for example, they use things called the Pomodoro technique, where they pull up a YouTube video, like I pictured here, where it says work for 25 minutes and it's timed, then take maybe a 15-minute break that's timed, and then go back again. And that worked for them because they had that external type of timekeeping that would take care of it for them. For me, that didn't always work. So the way I started off kind of figuring out what my techniques were was by making a schedule with my assignments to due dates, figuring out, okay, I'm going to give myself maybe 3, 4 days to work on an assignment and then turn it in and then move on to the next thing. So that was kind of how I started off, just thinking, okay, about how much time do I think I can give myself? And at the same time, you want to space out your study blocks so that you have enough time to concentrate and they're not, I guess, cramming everything into one study session. I think that's one of the things that can pose a big problem is when people make too big of a study block and expect to study for like 5 hours at once. And that's not the most effective thing you can do. It's better to do smaller increments more often. Um, Something else you can do is find a place that you want to study at and make that kind of, I guess, like a permanent study spot so that whenever you go into that space, your mind subconsciously already thinks like, okay, I'm in this place. I always study here. So I need to get into that mindset. So that's one of the things I did at my university. I found about maybe 3 or 4 different spots on campus, and those were my designated study areas where I would go to do homework. And the reason why I had several was because if I went to one space and there were people over there and it was kind of too distracting, too noisy, I would just move to the other place. So I thought that worked for me because I would just go over there, sit down, do my work, and that was kind of the main thing that was on my mind. And as soon as I left it, then I could kind of focus on other things. Then the third bullet point is kind of talking about studying in a quiet environment or an environment with minimal noise. And I think this kind of also depends on who you are and what you think will work for you. I know some people like to kind of sit in total silence and do their work with no distractions. But for me, I found that having some noise often made me more productive. So kind of those study spaces I had found, they were in areas that were relatively quiet, but kind of near a hallway where people would walk through, but not so often, because having that noise, that background noise, that white noise of people walking, sometimes a little bit talking, continued to make me feel like efficient. I couldn't just do something in the where it's just completely quiet. That didn't work for me. So, like I said, you kind of need to go through and try things out and see what works best for you, and then continue to practice that. Um, then the last thing that I think worked really well for me was making myself accountable by studying with a friend. And I know what there comes a risk with studying with a friend, because if you study with a friend, you could both be very productive doing work together. But at the same time, if you guys start talking a little too much, then you kind of derail the whole studying process. So that was one of the things I did was I found a friend who I knew that I could work with who was also very studious, and we kind of just would sit in a spot and do homework that entire time, and we wouldn't really have any chit chat on the side until we had our little breaks. So I think that's one of the big things to emphasize too, is studying with a friend can be good, but don't get too distracted. And it does help to have somebody else being productive, because then you feel that you have to be productive. So that was kind of a way to kind of make myself study. um and then lastly, I was talking about the Pomodoro technique, which is kind of taking the work for a specific amount of time, take a break for a specific amount of time, and then start again and kind of keep doing that in cycles. That didn't work for me, but I know for a lot of people it does. So I just want to kind of bring up that technique. And there's a lot of videos on YouTube and I'm sure other platforms where they have these built-in kind of timers. And so I found kind of like a typical study schedule that across universities where a lot of students study the most their first week and the fifth week. And you may be wondering like, oh, why these 2 weeks? Well, the first week is when you have your syllabus, when you start off your classes, and you kind of got to think about, okay, let me get into this class mindset. Then week 5 is when midterms start. So that's kind of where you see that uprise in studying. So this is the typical study schedule where weeks 2, 3, 4, you don't see it as much. But the ideal study schedule is where you're spending a good amount of time a consecutive amount of time, weeks 1 through 4 studying, and then week 5 really preparing for those midterms. So this is the ideal study schedule. And I know that for everybody, it's never going to be the ideal because we have other commitments, we have other things to focus on. But if you can get as close as you can to spending a good amount of time each week on studying, then it'll be more beneficial than trying to study everything on week 5 and cram it all and maybe learn, maybe not, but taking your tests and not being fully prepared. So try to review consecutively each week. That should be kind of the goal. But along with studying habits and tools are one thing, but at the same time, you also have to kind of have a behavioral change. You have to be actively engaged in what you're studying and feel passionate about studying. Otherwise, it won't work. It'll feel more like a chore. So there was a study in 2013, and I'm sure there were a few more recent ones, but this is the one that I kind of looked at in learning and instruction. And they said that there's different types of engagement. And when you have all 3 types, that's when you have the best outcome when it comes to knowledge. So the first type of engagement is behavioral engagement, where it's completing assignments, following course guidelines, participating in class discussions, and making that behavioral change to be engaged. Then you have the emotional engagement, where it's more focused on your specific feeling. So behavioral, you're physically doing it. Emotional, you have that emotional stake and emotional feeling towards your assignments, towards your work, and you feel invested in your work. Then you have the cognitive engagement, where you kind of more of a reflection piece, where you actively think about your study habits, managing them, thinking about what can I improve, monitoring them, and then at the same time, just kind of having that personal stake in it. So being engaged with all these 3, where you physically kind of make yourself do those assignments, but then you begin to have that emotional connection, like, yes, I want to succeed, I want to do good on this exam, I want to do good on this assignment, having that emotional investment, and then actively taking the steps to think, okay, what can I do better, what can I change to improve? Combining all those 3 really makes a good makes you engaged, and at the same time in tandem with your study habits makes you a better student overall. So we're kind of going a little bit backwards again to the syllabus, but when you first go in with your study habits, you need to think ahead about, okay, there's all these different questions that I have with my class, and this will kind of influence a little bit on how I study, what I study, and what I'm going to do. So some of the questions that I wanted to pose to everybody to kind of think about when they're going into a course, when they're going into a class for the first time. What will be required of you in this course? What are the assignments and dates? What are the expectations? What's the grading background? What are the policies, like late policies, extra credit policies? What are the kinds of tests? Are my tests going to be multiple choice? Are they going to be open-ended? Are they going to be essays? Where does the test material come from? Does the test material come from a textbook, several textbooks? Is it from the professor's slides? Where do the quizzes, are there quizzes? What do the quizzes consist of? How long are the quizzes? Then thinking about office hours. When are my professors available? When can I go talk to them if I need to? Then thinking about, okay, if this for this class, where may I find other resources? For example, if you're taking like a biology class, are there any tutors available? Is there a tutor specifically for biology that I can talk to? Then lastly, just attending class. That's one of the biggest things. You need to attend class to gain that information to study better. But these are just some of the questions you should think about when you first start your class for every single one of your classes. Kind of keep that in mind. And again, that all comes from the syllabus, and you'll have a document for that. But what to actually do in class. So sit close to the professor towards the front, and again, have that engagement where you're thinking, okay, I want to do my best. I want to make a good impression. So I'm going to sit in the front and I'm going to be a good student. So the way you do that is you start a relationship with a professor, talking either before or after the class about maybe some of the materials, asking them a few questions, asking them about maybe their research or why they're interested in this subject, things like that, to kind of make that connection with them. Then ask and answer
Do
questions.
you have anything?
Be engaged, ask those questions, and because when you ask questions and you get answers, you I guess you learn them a little bit better or you remember it better. Then um if you do happen to get bored, that's when you review notes, look at the slides, read things through that, and then there's always copy down examples. So that's what you should be doing in class. And for me, I want to kind of talk about like on here, I say sit close to the professor, and that doesn't always mean you have to be right in front. For me, I was always one of the people who sat maybe in the second or third row away from the professor, where I was still in the front, but not directly in front of the professor, but I also wasn't in the back. So definitely that's kind of one of the things I recommend. And I had a picture just kind of like in the seats where I would probably end up sitting. But yeah, that's definitely one of the things. Be engaged, and the professor, they ultimately have the say so when it comes to their class, because in most syllabus, the professors will have a line that says, a syllabus is subject to change based on whatever the professor, their opinion. So definitely kind of keep that in mind. Continue to build that professor-student relationship. So then when you're in class listening and talking, at the same time, you're going to be taking notes. So taking notes is one thing, but then organizing your notes is another. So in class, you're listening to what the professor says, you're taking your notes, and maybe they're written a little sloppy because you're trying to keep up. Afterwards, it may be worth rewriting some notes and at the same time reviewing your class notes. So definitely keep that in mind. And one of the big things I want to emphasize is learn what note-taking strategies work for you. I know some people are very much they promote Cornell note style taking. Cornell notes weren't always for me. At the same time, there's also digital note taking. If you have that, that may work for you, that may not. Then there's also paper notes. So for me, it depended a lot on my class. So for classes that had a lot of diagrams and required like a lot of pictures, I would often do the note taking on my laptop and write directly on the slide because it was directly on the diagrams and I could take notes like that. But then on courses that weren't diagram based, I would often have to use a notebook and paper because I felt like that made me retain information a lot better than maybe writing on an iPad or taking notes on a computer. That didn't work for me for classes that didn't have the diagrams. So definitely, again, it takes a little bit of trial and error, but really after you practice a few times and figure out what works for you, it'll work well. Then third, I want to emphasize taking notes. Make sure you use your own words. You're the only person who's going to be looking over your notes. So you should be able to understand what you wrote, at the same time feel comfortable reading what you wrote. So if a professor may say something that has a lot of jargon, that's very specific terms, you can even ask a question, raise your hand, and ask them, okay, so you said that, but what does that mean? Or restate it and say, is this what that means? And then write that down. So at the same time, never be afraid to ask questions from your professor. And they're usually more than happy to try to explain it to you, because you have to remember that professors have spent years in a subject. They spent years studying something and they know most of the ins and outs. And we're just taking a class and kind of touching the tip of the iceberg there. So if you don't understand something, it's always good to ask questions, because sometimes they don't know that you may not know. They may think everybody is an expert as well. So kind of keep that in mind. Then the main thing with note taking is making the effort to go over your notes. Just read it over, maybe practice something, make note cards, things like that. Go over your notes. And they often say within 24 hours of note taking is the best time to look at your notes again. So I just want to bring that up. Then overall, just make sure adjust your note taking. You don't have to write down every single thing that's said. Write down what you think is important, what the professor may say. Make sure you write down. And like I said, if you don't understand something, always ask questions, ask other people, and just don't let those questions be unanswered. So these are some of the study strategies that I found online, and I was going through them. There were a good number that I was thinking like, oh, I didn't know that was the term for it. So I kind of want to start off. So on the left is highlighting and underlining. That's a strategy that a lot of people use. It may not work for everybody. Highlighting, underlining. It is good to kind of get the main information from a piece of text or notes. And I would recommend using it like that. But if you find yourself highlighting almost every sentence or every line, that may not be the most efficient. So definitely it takes a little practice to learn what to highlight and what to underline versus what not to. Then rereading is always something that's important. Rereading combined with summarizing. Read if you have like a text or if you have notes, read that and then summarize it. Because when you summarize it, you're taking that information and you're transforming it into another form, which is going to still be correct. But since you're actively making that effort to change that information, you're going to it's going to be in your memory a lot better. You're going to remember it, and you're also going to be able to kind of explain it a little bit better. Then there's also keywords and mnemonics that you can talk about. I would never really use mnemonics. I focus more on keywords and kind of like when I see this keyword, this is what I'm going to think. So I guess an example of that would be if you're writing an essay, or like, I guess if you have an essay prompt, or if you have a prompt to answer a question, look at keywords and kind of think about, okay, this word was also used here, and this is what they were asking for. So I can assume that even though I may not understand what the rest of the sentence is saying, this word right here will kind of hint at what it's asking or what it's talking about. So definitely keywords are a big thing. Then using imagery for text learning. So some people associate pictures or images with text. Sometimes people write text as images. So there's a few different strategies with that. I didn't really use that too often, so I'm not going to speak too much on that. But definitely that's one other strategy that you can kind of delve into further. Um, then there's one called elaborative interrogation. So I didn't know this was a term for it, but elaborative interrogation is where you kind of ask yourself a question pertaining to the information that you're studying and then try to answer it. So say you're trying to study like I'm just going to use an example. Like, say you're trying to study something that has to do with like biology, like maybe metabolism, like the what was it called? Citric acid cycle or like that kind of thing. You can say like, okay, so what is the end product of this and why is it what leads to this? And then you're going to be answering your own question saying, okay, this step makes this and this step makes this. And I know that because of this. So kind of like I said, changing things into a question, answering them. When you answer questions, you also kind of build up that confidence because you know that you're understanding it if you're giving the right answers. So that's one of the things, even if you're studying something that isn't necessarily a question, making it into a question and answering it is a good way to do it. The next is self-explanation, where you're taking a term and you're just explaining it in your own words and you're kind of talking about it to yourself. And I know some people are kind of like talking to yourself. I often would do that. Say, um, if I found a keyword or a term that didn't make sense to me, I would kind of talk about it and explain it to myself in different terms. And then that's kind of how I internalized it. And then every time I saw that word or keyword, that's kind of what I continue to think about. So just offering your own explanation in the way you understand it. Then this one is called interleave practice. So most times when we are studying something or trying to master a new skill, we'll always kind of do the one thing over and over and over until we master it, and then we move on to the next thing, do it over and over and over until we master it. But what interleave practice is, it's instead of doing one thing over and over mastering, next thing over and over mastering, it's doing everything a few times at the same time. So kind of like you're doing several skills at the same time, then you go through and repeat all of them together, go through, repeat all of them together, and master them all together at once. Instead of doing one thing until you're good at it, moving to the next thing, and you're doing it all again until you're good at it. Instead, do a complete run through of whatever techniques, whatever you're learning, go through it all at once, then redo it, and then go through the whole process again. So that's one of the things that interleave practice that I often did a lot, and I definitely recommend. I was just kind of instead of trying to master one thing and then moving on to the next, just start all over and then do it all again, do it all again, do it again until everything together is mastered together. Um, then practice testing. You can find practice tests. There's different softwares like Quizlet or even some of your textbooks, they have practice tests in the back. Take those practice tests after you study maybe a chapter and try to figure out what you understand and what you need to study more about. That's definitely one of the things I would recommend, practice tests, because you're going to have a real test about it later. Why not practice now and do the tests? Um, then distributed practice, just kind of practicing. So instead of doing again everything all at once and kind of cramming, you're going to take the time to do it, maybe take a little break, then do it again, break, do it again, instead of a chunk of like studying for 5 hours. That's not going to do much for you. Better to split that 5 hours up into different time points and then studying, doing other things, studying, doing other things, and studying and doing other things. So those are some of the strategies I want to kind of bring up. Then just moving into homework. The whole point of doing homework is to understand the concepts that were involved with what you were learning that day or that week. Homework really is for yourself, even though even though in most classes homework is going to be graded, homework is really for you to practice and to understand concepts. So definitely do the homework and put in the effort and don't just copy off of somebody, or you can work with other people as well, but it's best to do the homework on your own and then maybe compare with somebody and see what things were different, what you may have got wrong, or if somebody else got it wrong, you can teach it to them. So that's one of the good things about homework. And just continuing to kind of test yourself with homework. And like I said, is if you're working with somebody else, studying with a friend, you can compare homework when you're done, then go through it again and make sure kind of what everybody's thought process was. That's always like a good way to do your homework. So then we talked about studying with regards to in your classes, doing homework, and now we're kind of getting to doing your tests right before your tests. So one thing you can do before your tests is take your notes and make note cards and then review them, mix them up and review them and kind of quiz yourself like that. And like I said, Quizlet does have some Quizlet is one resource. There's many others, but Quizlet is one resource that will do this for you. So definitely I would recommend looking into that. And then at the same time, you can see if there are any sample or old tests available or practice tests. You can find those maybe from upperclassmen. You can also find those from people like, you could ask your professors if they have maybe a study guide or a practice test. And then at the end of your textbooks, there might be a practice test as well. So practice tests will really come in handy. Then reviewing your homework. That's also another big thing. Like I said, your homework is there to test your concepts. And the homework is usually longer than what a quiz or a test will be. And a homework will usually test more difficult concepts because you have more time to do homework. So reviewing homework to make sure you understand concepts that may have been taught before a test is really good. Then you never know at the same time. Sometimes homework problems may be on your test. Um, and then lastly, before a test, make sure you attend office hours. Sometimes a professor may host a study session. I would highly recommend you go to those because, again, they're the ones who are making your exams. They're the ones who know what will be on your exams. So most often than not, some professors may even go through problems that will show up on the exam with maybe little word changes here and there. So definitely kind of this is a study strategy that I use before any type of exam. And then actually taking your tests, you have many different type of test styles, and this is just kind of for multiple choice. So what I found from different places was that one thing you can think about with multiple choice is think of it as a conveyor belt. Carefully choose an answer and move on. And if you don't know the answer now, it's always better to put an answer what you think might be best and come back to it later than to move on and maybe even forget about it and turn in your test. So definitely, I always went with the philosophy that when you have a multiple choice test, it's always good to put something down, even if you don't know it. If you feel like you might have, if you feel like you're kind of on, like I said, like a multiple choice exam, it's always good to just put something down, even if you don't know it. Then don't try not to second guess yourself. Usually kind of I'm one of the people who says like go by your gut feeling. The first answer that you feel is correct is usually correct. And there's been a lot of studies that say people who usually do go back to multiple choice answers and change answers usually tend to lower their scores. They may have had it the first time, but continue to second guess themselves. So I always went by my gut reaction, my gut feeling, and thinking like, I remember this, I know this, and I'm not going to second guess it right now. Then another thing to keep in mind is that the most tricky questions may be the ones that seem the most easy. One little word may change the entire question, or one of the answers may be really close to another answer. So when you come to a multiple choice question, put a little more thought into the ones that you think are easy because there may be little things here and there that may make it appear easy but not be easy. Then just again, keywords are a big thing, especially in tests. If look for things that are really important, circle or highlight or underline those important words. So like one of the examples I like to think about is like in the multiple choice questions, it'll be like select the things that are not instead of the ones that are select the things that are. So definitely little things like that will make all the difference. So some of the words like not, always, or never, definitely kind of keep those in mind when you're taking your exams. Then if you don't know an answer and you're kind of thinking about, okay, there's a few that are kind of similar, you can always do the ruling out kind of strategy where you look at, okay, which ones don't make sense, and then continue to cross them off until you're left at maybe two answers, and then you can choose between one of those two. So there are a lot of different strategies to test taking, and definitely the biggest thing is don't freak out. Just understand that you've learned everything, you know it, and it's somewhere in your head, but don't freak out too much on the exams. So then this is just in general for tests that may be essay based. So if you're studying for tests that are essay based, study for understanding. I know in like multiple choice, you may do a little more memorizing for those keywords, those key terms, but for essays, you want to study for understanding because you're going to have to, in an essay, write about it. And if you don't understand it, most likely you're not going to be able to write about it. So read the questions carefully, and make sure you understand what the question is asking, and then make it outline. Always make an outline. And some people may do like really long like outlines. My outlines were often maybe like 4 or 5 just sentences. The first one was like, this is my intro, when I'm writing for my intro. This is my first point, this is my second point, this is my third point, and then this is my conclusion. And then from there, you can write paragraphs based off of that. So I want to include just a little bit of a diagram. And this is kind of like a bottom down method where you first got to focus on like your introduction, your topic sentence. Then you're going to talk about, okay, this is kind of what the paper is going to talk about. Then you're going to get specific on like, this is what I want to talk about specifically. And then these are the details following that. And the conclusion is talking about, okay, this is kind of restating my introduction and focus of my paper. So that's kind of the general format that I think is really safe to follow for every exam that you're going to take. So then just more test taking strategies. My number one is often if you're taking a test that requires like formulas for any class, write those down on scratch paper as soon as you start your test. So like I remember like I took like a thermodynamics class where you have to memorize formulas, and sometimes they may give a formula sheet or sometimes they may not. So kind of before you go in, think about, okay, these are the formulas that I know. Then as soon as you sit down and they let you start your test, write those down because you may need them later, and it's better to write them down while you remember them. Then when you're taking a test, show as much work as you can because most often professors will give partial credit even if your full answer isn't correct. So just show your entire thought process and show your work and get those extra points as well. Then another thing is make sure you show where your answer is on a page. I know when I took a test, I would always put a box around my answer just so that they know this is the answer and this is where it's at. Because sometimes your papers can get really congested and you're not really sure like where to look. So always putting a box around your answer will kind of direct their attention towards it. Then again, don't run out of time on harder questions. If you don't know it, put something down, so whatever you think is close, move on. And if you have extra time at the end, then you can go back. But it's better to focus on trying to answer all the questions rather than just a few of them. And then fifth, check for little errors here and there. I know I'm guilty of always making like small little errors. You may not carry a negative sign. You may accidentally write the wrong number. Just kind of always take that time at the end to look through everything again and see if you're satisfied. Um, and then after a test, after you get your, not even just a test, after a homework test or quiz, when you get your grade back, if you make any errors, always look at the errors and make sure that you understand what you did wrong so that you're able to improve that when you're redoing your next, when you're doing your next assignment. So kind of we're nearing the end of the presentation, so I kind of want to focus on a little bit more of the psychological preparation. So before exams, try not to stress out, kind of take that time to relax and kind of get that your confidence up there. Like I said, you studied, you went to class, you have the knowledge somewhere in your head, and it's just a matter of bringing that out. So feel confident that you do know the information, but maybe you just can't recall it right now. So definitely try to kind of, nerves are a big thing when it comes to tests. So overall, just being prepared psychologically and just kind of being like happy and thinking like, okay, I'm prepared, I feel prepared, I feel confident, will increase your self-efficacy and your efficiency. So that's definitely one of the things I wanted to bring up is an exam is an exam, but you need to feel confident about it. You need to feel good about it. Let me see. Then just kind of the last thing before I end this presentation is that along with the psychological, you also have to make sure that you eat well before your exam. I mean, before your exam, the day of your exam, the food will make you feel better. It will make you more conscious. If you haven't eaten, you're going to be focused on hunger, you're going to be focused on what you want to eat. So definitely eat before. Sleep is also really important. I know some people, a lot of my friends pulled all-nighters to take exams, and I can study for exams and take it the next morning. I can say that it didn't usually bode well for them. So I would say sleep, prioritize your sleep, set that time, organize your time so that you can study before and have enough time to sleep the day of your exam. And then the last several days leading up to any test or assignment that you think is due or really important to you, study your tests, the structure, and kind of think about your test taking strategies, because studying the content, you should be doing that already, and then preparing more for the test itself, because a lot of times people say taking a test in itself is often you need to build strategy for that. So that's kind of what that's for. And then studying the day before and day of the test is also good to do. But again, you should be studying pretty much almost every day, or at least every other day leading up to your exam. And the night before and the day of should be testing little last minute things and not trying to cram all of the information that you should have been looking over into just those few hours. So yeah, that's what I have to offer for everybody. And if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat.
Thank you, Sky. Yes, does anybody have any questions or inspired by, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Does anybody have any questions or want any follow-up on anything? Nope, I think you covered all the points, guys. So yeah, thank you so much. Always love having you and share your knowledge of everything on academic success. Hopefully y'all took some pointers down and really take into consideration of the tips that Sky did share. Definitely a lot of things also resonated with me as well. So yeah, definitely, again, this video is being recorded, so you can always come back to refer to it too, or share it with others that might find it beneficial as well. So thank you, Sky. Let's go ahead and wrap up. So let me just find my screen first. see where we at. Sorry guys, I lost my mouse. Okay, here we go. Okay, well, thank y'all again for coming. This is the day 2 of the Sko to College series. We're still in week 1, and we have 2 more events to round off this week. So tomorrow at 2 p.m. we do have a Creating Connections on Campus panel. Again, we'll be having 2 students, and they'll be sharing their insights and advice on, reaching out to different professionals or instructors, friends, anybody in your community, honestly, that will help you, professionally, personally, academically. There's a lot of really good ways that you can benefit yourself by just simply introducing yourself to somebody, doing like with all the networking and everything. So we'll have 2 students kind of talk about that tomorrow, and how networking has helped them in their own academic success and everything. And then we'll be having on the same day, Thursday, tomorrow at 4 p.m. What's on your mind, FYE socials. So again, please keep in mind all these times are in Mountain Daylight Time. So we're in New Mexico, or just refer to New Mexico time. So but yeah, thank y'all so much. Again, if you are looking ahead at the schedule and you want to register for any other events in advance, you can always find all of those on our link tree. Again, that is I put that in the chat, as well as the FYE newsletter too. So we always send those out. So if you want to keep on track with that as well, you can always subscribe to the newsletter here. Guys, it's getting hot over here. So but then you can always follow us at Native Pathways as well. So yeah, thank y'all so much for attending this event. Here's the event evaluation again. Again, this is for each submission that you do, it's your ticket punched into the door prizes again. So we have some really great prizes lined up here, so definitely try to get those event evaluations. We really appreciate it, all the feedback. And there's also the little section to say thank you to our guest hosts who come and share their knowledge with you and everything. And we'll definitely pass it along to Sky and then all the other guest hosts that will be hosting sessions as well. But yeah, thank y'all again. Again, take some time for yourself, take care of yourself, make sure you're getting enough water intake, staying hydrated, stay cool out there as well. Think about all of our relatives who might be homeless or unsheltered, and try to just keep them in mind as well. Just keep in mind that it is fire season as well, so please try to be mindful of that if you're outdoors camping or anything. Just be aware of your surroundings. So thank y'all again so much, and we'll see you again tomorrow and for the other rest of the weeks as well. So thanks, y'all.